We no doubt have our own mental imagery on what causes one to fall into the spell of addiction. Besotted by a constant craving for nicotine, lured towards the potentiality of a popped cork, and going to any length to maintain the habit. If we think about it though, is there more to the notion of addiction than the images that we so often know of? Put simply, addiction can be defined as a habit that yearns for reinforcement, where a dependence is built to not just repeat the habit, but to replicate its discovered nirvana. There are many reasons we could account for such behaviour. We can see an addict as an emotional disturbance, perhaps a traumatic childhood with underlying anxiety or sadness that has drawn us into a drought of dependence. It could also come from the influence of our culture, peer pressures to conform, as well as our family surroundings. And while these reasons are well justified, if we think of the real reasons to why we decide to divulge into excess, we can put it down to one single element. We are filling a gap in our lives. We may be stressed with our work and not sure how to handle our boss. We could be struggling with our relationships. Where no matter what we are faced with, there is an element of our lives that unfulfills us, that we search for other means to fill it. We may think we know what it feels like to be human, but if we knew this, we could always explain our behaviour, even when we experience our highs and lows. We often look for things to soothe our troubled selves, the instant rush to push our bodies to the limit, or even tantalise our tongues with fine food. We don't matter for its reasons. When temptation is held within the feel of our fingers, we don't need to be considered an addict to share such traits of behaviour. If anything, through social and mass media, we are constantly reminded to satisfy it. Therefore, addiction isn't just something that is reserved for the few. As due to the pressures that we feel in our everyday lives, there is always a gap that we constantly need to fill. Where our challenge is to understand the line between what is deemed mild or too many, which is forever fine. So what can we do to warn ourselves when we fall into this trap? Before every action there is always a thought. So if we can build the awareness to notice when our desires are leading us to reach for another drink, or yearning for the taste of a fresh cigarette, we can then recognise the pattern to start to see ourselves beyond the impacts of our moods. If we can slow down the process to accept our thoughts for what they are, we can then calmly walk away from what is within our grasp. We can then witness our moods moving into a well of wisdom, knowing that we have been to this place before. We are knowing better ways to handle our stress by treating ourselves with the same understanding and patience that we offer other people. It's one of life's quandaries, as for as long as we have hands, addiction will always be in our grasp. There is a normality of addiction that appears in all of us, which is part of being human. As for whom we deem as being invulnerable, are no less a human than ourselves.